We are live at 9. It is transformation time. We are live at 9. It is transformation time. Good morning to everybody. Good morning to the people that will be joining the live on a replay. Y'all know I have been coming with these words because the Lord has been dealing with me. And we were on conflict. But what I noticed is in the last 3 days, I had a thought that came in my mind and it would not go away. It lingered. And I understand how the Lord used me. So I knew that he put that thought there for me to question it, because anything that I question, I began to seek out. And so I began to seek the Lord for answers to that question. But in the process of seeking the Lord for answers, I also knew that he was getting ready to shift the live and go to another subject. So we've been talking about conflict and all of the areas that conflict shows up and how to handle conflict. Well, the question that the Lord posed, I actually saw a post on Facebook. I saw a couple of posts on Facebook, and I listened to a pastor say that we're not supposed to bury our children. We are not supposed to bury our children. And my first thought when I heard that was, okay, that normally doesn't do anything to me. I've heard that several times, and that has done nothing to my spirit. But this particular time, it did something to my spirit to make me want to search it out. And it lingered in my spirit, even though I was on another subject. It continued to linger in my spirit. So what I began to do was I began to seek the Lord for guidance and for answers to the question that I kept hearing in my mind. So the way that the Lord uses me is he will allow a thought to come in my mind. And when that thought comes in my mind, he knows that I'm nosy. I'm good and nosy. I will search a thing out, trying to get understanding for it. And so that is what I did. I began to search that thing out. So this is where we are. He is now dealing with me on grief. So we have left conflict and we have entered the season of grief. That is where we are, and that is what he had me thinking about. So I began to question and study to get understanding from the Lord, because we have to make sure that we're taking everything to God. We cannot take in everything everybody says, especially when it is doing something to your spirit. And so I am so sensitive in the spirit now that when things are being said, it filters through a different way in my ear, and it causes me to question what I'm hearing because it doesn't sound right. There's a sound that I listen for, and when it does not sound right going in my ear, it causes me to question, okay, Lord, why is that bothering me, or why doesn't that sound right in my ear? So again, we are on grief, and let me tell you the significance of being on grief. Today is literally the day that I lost my dad, and I don't keep up with this stuff. So when I tell you God is intentional about how he does things, how he aligns things, he started this thing on grief on a day, good morning, Mom, that he knew that I lost an important person in my life. But what he did, because I needed to understand what was happening, because he wanted me to preach my dad's funeral. And I could not preach my dad's funeral without understanding it. So I'm going to tell y'all about that story before, once I get started. But I want to pray before I fully start this live, because this word was very heavy. I call words weighty, and this was a very weighty word for me. So, Father God, I come to you right now, Lord, asking you to touch the ears of the people, the hearts and the minds of the people that you are sending to this live, Lord. Lord, we understand that grief is a very weighty burden to carry, Lord. But any person that you are sending to receive a word that you have given me, Lord, help them to understand it in a way that they are able to understand it to begin the healing process, Lord. Help them to see things the way that you need for them to see it, Lord. Help them to understand every part of grief and the losing and the bringing back of certain things, Lord. Lord, I give you all the glory, the honor, and the praise for all that you're doing in my life, Lord. And I thank you for continuing to use me to draw your people in to you, Lord. I thank you for choosing me every single morning, Lord. You choose to use me, Lord, and I thank you for using me. Lord, I give you all the glory, the honor, and the praise in Jesus' mighty name. Amen, amen, amen. So, listen, let me tell y'all how this worked for me. The Lord told me when my dad passed on today, I don't even know how many years it's been, because I try not to keep up with that. I don't want to remember my dad and his death. I want to remember my dad and his life. So I don't keep up with his death date. I don't keep up with those things because I want to stick to remembering the good times. That's what keeps me going. The good times, the times that I shared with my dad, the times that I laughed with my dad. And so if I continue to dwell on his death and his death date, then it'll keep me stuck. So I choose not to remember that. But what I did do is on the day that my dad died, when I had a moment to myself, I picked up my phone because I knew that so much was happening in that day that I couldn't remember. So what I did is I picked up my phone and I put in my phone the day my dad died. And then I set a reminder to remind me every year that this was the day of his passing. So, I set an alarm to remind me the day before so that I can be prepared when that day comes. If I'm emotional, I will know, what's happening in that moment, because the emotions will come. We can't stop them from coming. We feel those, but we just have to learn how to handle our emotions, how to deal with them, how to sit in them sometimes, and just allow them to do what the purpose that they serve to do in our hearts and in our minds. So when the Lord told me to preach my father's death, I was like, I can't. And I tried to pass that thing off to everybody. I had cousins that pastor, and I kept trying to pass that thing off. But what kept happening was the Lord kept sending people. He sent 7 people, a total of 7 people. And some of them called me. And he was sending people, and he was telling them to tell me that he was getting ready to put me up against a hard test. Now, let me tell you why he had to send people. Because sometimes in your pain, when you are dwelling in your pain and you can't hear properly. So he was saying it to me, but I couldn't hear him because I was too busy grieving that I couldn't understand what the Lord was telling me to do. So what the Lord did is he sent people, and they were telling me the same thing, and I was catching it. But even though they were saying, hey, the Lord is getting ready to put you up against a hard task, I was pushing that thing off. I kept trying to push that task off onto somebody else. So what began to happen is he started sending more people, and this time, because it was calls at first, but then he started sending people to see me face to face and tell me, the Lord is putting you up against a hard test. And a couple of people said, you got to preach your dad's funeral. And I was like, how can I preach my dad's funeral? He my daddy too. I just lost him, So I'm just as sad as the next person. So how am I supposed to preach my dad's funeral? How am I supposed to preach my dad's funeral? I didn't understand how that was possible. So what began to happen is, he sent one last person, and I asked her, I said, why did you say those specific words, the Lord is getting ready to put you up against a hard test? And she began to explain it to me. Okay, she began to explain it to me. And as she began to explain it, the Lord, as she was talking, the Lord began to give me revelation. He began to open my eyes to understand. And I just cried, and I was like, Lord, I don't think I can do this. But if you say I can do it, then okay, I just prepare for it. So what I did is I began to prepare for my dad's funeral. And in the moment, I kept trying to search out the words to say for my dad. But I didn't have to do that. I can remember, I didn't get the word for my dad until the night before his funeral. I was sitting in the room, and the Lord showed me bases on a baseball field. And I was sitting in the room and I'm like, okay, God, like, what do you want me to talk about? And I started seeing these bases, and then he started talking about the innings in the game and how many bases it was and how people struggle to go around to bring it on back home. And he laid that thing out for me. And so I began to understand what he was saying, and he started showing me in the game how most times when a baseball player gets up to the mat to hit the ball, they don't always hit it. They might punt it, and then they can only go to first base. And when they get to first base, they might not make it to second base. They may have to turn around and come back because they got out. But when you partner with the Lord, see, he had to show me this thing. When you partner with the Lord, then you are able to make it all around all the bases and make it home. You're able to hit a home run. But when you're trying to lean on your own understanding, you struggle to understand what it is that the Lord is trying to show you. Okay? So he moved me past it. He moved me on forward. And I got up that morning, the morning of my dad's funeral. I got up and I said, you know, I was nervous. I had never done this before. And again, this was my dad. I got up that morning and I said, he was like, just ride and come talk to me. So I got up, I went on the beach side, and I began to just drive down A1A. And as I began to, let me back up. I was headed across the bridge, and what I noticed that there were people that normally fish with poles out there fishing with nets. They were out there fishing with nets. And so I paid attention to it going across, but it really didn't dawn on me. And I went across and I rolled up and down A1A, and I talked to the Lord, and he began to give me the word for what he wanted me to really talk about at that funeral. And then as I came back across the bridge, I looked over and I saw more people fishing with nets. But this time I questioned the Lord and was like, Lord, normally people are fishing with poles. Why do I see people fishing with nets? And that was the first time I understood what it meant to go fishing. And he told me, he said, you're about to go fishing. And as he helped me to understand my dad's death, he explained to me how things went. And he explained to me that my dad was put on this earth for a purpose. And my dad had served his purpose on earth. And so he was able to go and live an everlasting life with him. He showed me how he used my dad as bait. He used my dad as bait to draw people in, meaning my dad was out in the world and he was encountering certain people, building relationships with certain people, so that when the day came that he actually passed, that these people would be in position, the people that needed to be at the funeral on that day would be there to hear the word that the Lord wanted me to deliver to the people. Because understand, it was never my word. It wasn't my word to give. And so that's how that went. And I delivered the word of the Lord. But in doing that, in the preparation for my father's death, the Lord helped me to understand what death was about. He helped me to understand how to see it properly. And so though we grieve, right? Though we grieve, because grieving is a part of the process, he helped me to find peace in losing my dad. He helped me to find peace in it. And so today is the day that I lost my dad, but I grieve different. I have peace with it where I struggle. And after I delivered the word, he gave me the strength to be able to stand up in that church and deliver that word. But when we went to the repast, they played a video of me and my dad dancing. And when they played that video, that is where I broke down, because reality set in that my dance partner would no longer really be able to dance with me again. And so reality set in. I cried, and then after I cried, I let it go. At that point, I let it go. And so I feel like the Lord blessed me to understand my father's death so that I would not be stuck and so that I can move forward. Why? Because he knew what he was calling me to, and he knew what he needed to use me for, so he needed me to understand it. So here we are today talking about grief. And grief comes in all types of ways. Understand, grief is not just coming by losing somebody. Grief comes in so many other ways, but we're going to get into that. So the title that he gave me for this live was The Battle with Grief. Excuse me, to heal or not to heal? That is the question. To heal or not to heal? That is the question. So this time, I don't have a song for y'all. Because he didn't give it to me by way of a song. He gave it to me by way of a question. And that question lingered in my ear. So, when dealing with grief, there's some things that we have to understand that aside from conflict, because conflict is a thing that holds us down, that hinders us from moving forward. But grief is also a thing that hinders us from moving forward. That is another big obstacle that people struggle with. And due to our lack of understanding grief in general, due to our lack of understanding grief, and our lack of emotional intelligence to understand grief, we don't know how to recognize it. We don't know how to properly name what we're feeling. We don't know how to understand what we're feeling, and we don't know how to properly express what we're feeling in a healthy way. Because of this, we start to suppress our pain instead of grieving it. And it causes us to not be able to heal from there. God gives us a choice, but it requires us putting in the work. So he gives us a choice to heal or not to heal. But we have to actually put in the work. There's a scripture that says faith without works is dead. So that means that he requires us to be faithful, but to work in the process of being faithful, not just sit and wait on the Lord to heal us. It requires us to do the work to heal. Why? Because if he's calling us to people like us, then we have to be able to show them the work that we did in order to heal. If we don't ever do the work to heal, we will continue to stay stuck. When a person experiences a loss, like loss after loss after loss after loss, that becomes a cycle in your mind, and eventually you make that your new normal, because now you're moving around, walking on eggshells, trying to see when the next loss is going to come. And so it make you handle situations different. You walk around anticipating pain instead of expectation of the purpose from the pain. Again, you walk around you walk around anticipating pain instead of expecting the pain to take you to your purpose. So what does anticipation mean? What does anticipation mean? Anticipation means the action of anticipating something, expecting or predicting it. Expectation is something different. Expectation is a strong belief that something will happen. So let me break down the difference in the two. Anticipation is thinking something is going to happen, where expectation is believing something is going to happen. There's a difference. The choice is yours. What do you believe? Are you going to keep thinking it's going to happen, or are you going to believe that the Lord said this is going to happen? Because believing means that we have to stand on the promises of God. And he promises certain things to us, but if you don't know the promises of God, then you don't know what you're standing for. When you don't know what you're standing for, you fall for anything. You fall for anything. So what happens when we're in our grieving period and we expect or anticipate, things to continue to happen, it pushes us into survival mode. We put ourselves off in this little glass house and we think that can't nobody touch us. And what is happening is we have created a false sense of security for ourselves. What I need for you to understand is God is the one that secures us. We don't secure ourselves. But what we try to do that. We block ourselves off in a space to protect our emotions. But emotions are meant to be felt. Emotions are meant to be felt. We just have to learn how to handle feeling the emotions and learn how to heal from what we feel. But what has happened is, over time, because we've been hurt before, because understand, in your childhood, you got hurt by something, you lost something, you didn't get something, you expected for something to happen, it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, and all of those things created this emotion, And so now you're afraid to lose. And so what you do is you take those emotions from your childhood and carry them over into your adulthood. Why? Because that memory is going to stick. What we remember most, we don't remember people in general, but we remember how they made us feel. So that shows us that the feelings will last past what the person did. Sometimes you can't even remember what a person did. All you remember is how they hurt you. And so we carry those into our adulthood, and then things begin to trigger us, which keeps us in survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, then we've closed ourselves not only off to people, but we've closed ourselves off to God, the one who is supposed to protect us, because he is our protector. It causes us to live a life of hypervigilancy. So what does it mean to be hypervigilant? Hypervigilant means extreme alert, careful, cautious, protective, and you have protective responses, and you don't have no character flaws. This person's nervous system learned that staying alert helped them survive past the danger. But when the danger ends, the alarm remains active. So once the danger is gone, then next thing you know, you still living like you are still in survival mode, because you don't know how to come out of that. And so we wonder why we struggle to move on in relationships, or we struggle to move past a death, or we struggle when we lose something. It's because your mind has created something that you do not know how to come out of or deactivate. So the survival response can interfere with your sleep. It interferes with your relationships. It interferes with your decision making, and it interferes with your peace. Why? Because if you're always hypervigilant for relationships, you always gonna think that either something is going to happen to the people that you are close to, which causes you to draw them near, and now you're controlling them to a point of suffocating them, or you're going to push them away because you don't want to be hurt or feel that emotion again. It causes you to not sleep because every sound you hear is going to wake you up. Oh, what was that? Oh, I heard this. Oh, it's always going to be an issue. And when it comes to your decision making, because you don't trust people, right? Because that's what happens when you're hypervigilant. You don't trust a lot of people. And so because you don't trust people, the next thing you're going to do, you're going to decide not to go to certain places, be around certain people, do certain things. So that's where your decision making comes into effect, and now it is affecting your decision making. So understand that this is affecting more than one area of your life. It's affecting all areas of your life. So if you want to know the signs of a hypervigilant person, because I know that the Lord is going to send the people here that's suffering from this, right? Because that's the purpose of him waking me up at 9 o'clock saying, hey, study this, understand this, now do this. Signs of a hypervigilant person. You constantly checking your room, checking your keys, checking your surroundings, checking the people facial expressions, checking the exit to make sure you have a way out if something happens. You walk on eggshells expecting for something bad to happen. You become easily startled by noises, movements, and unexpected touch. You overanalyze everything. Conversations, text, tone, voice, body language. Oh, they said that like this. Oh, well, did they mean it like that? Or what? You overanalyze everything. You assume that silence means that the person don't like you or they are rejecting you, when sometimes they could just be tired and need a break. You feel like you need to control the plans, details, and the surroundings. Why? Because you want to control what is happening so you can control the outcome. You have trouble trusting people and accepting help from people because you feel like the help might hurt you, the help might talk about you, the help might do something to you. Listen, I promise you, these were all signs that I struggled from. You become defensive before understanding what was really meant. So the first thing that happens, or the first thing that's said, you already think that they have ill intentions towards you. You become irritable, angry, and emotional, which causes you to overreact in situations that you weren't even supposed to react that way in. All it needed was you to slow down, listen, and understand. You have difficulty concentrating Because your mind is always checking for danger. Your mind is always thinking that something is going to happen. So you can't slow your thought process down. You have trouble sleeping, and some people have trouble staying asleep. You don't get rest. And then you wonder why you get up feeling tired. No energy, none of those things, because you're not getting the proper rest. You have muscle aches, headaches, rapid heartbeat, and stomach aches. Because your body is not settled. So everything that is happening with your body is causing it to be unsettled. You avoid unfamiliar people, places, relationships, and opportunities. And you prepare to lose even when there's no evidence that a loss is coming. You already preparing for the loss. You already feel like, I already know it's going to happen, so let me go ahead and prepare for it. You're looking down instead of looking up. You're looking down instead of looking up. Now, let me tell you what that sounds like for some people, because I just explained something, but y'all don't know what it sounds like. So let me tell you what you be saying in your mind. Why? How do I know this? Because I did it. Oh, Lord, something about to happen. When I went to Texas, that was my thought process. Lord, my child about to go to jail, and I'm all the way in Texas. And guess what? Because I thought it happened. We can make our thoughts become reality. Because when we speak that thing into the atmosphere, we planted that seed. We have to learn to stop speaking things into the atmosphere. I understand it now because I did it. We start thinking, well, why they acting funny towards me? Oh, they don't want to be around me no more. I'm trying to call them. They not answering the phone. Not understanding that sometimes people need time to themselves. Taking time to yourself does not mean that I don't love you. It don't mean that I'm rejecting you. It means that I need a break. When two people or more are around each other constantly, that's where frustration, anger, irritation, all of those things come. We have to know how to take a break from people. We have to know how to take time for ourselves. We have to know how to shut down. We're always ready to expect the worst. Every time you look at a situation, you already expecting the worst thing to happen. And then we have those people that says, child, peace don't never last. Peace don't never last. Because you've never seen it happen. But what you don't understand is you're planting those seeds. You're speaking it into the atmosphere. And because you're speaking it into the atmosphere, your words are becoming actions. They're becoming actions. Because you thought it and then you put it out there. So we have to be mindful of the way that we speak, the way that we think, the way that we handle situations. You struggle to partner with the Lord to heal. You struggle to partner with the Lord to heal. Why do you struggle to partner with the Lord to heal? Because I just said you don't trust anybody. So when I say you don't trust anybody, the Lord is included in that anybody. The Lord is included in that anybody, because the first thing you think is, if I trust the Lord, He's going to let me down. Because you already think everybody else is going to let you down. So, of course, yeah, the Lord is going to let me down too. But that's not the case. That's not the case. So the Lord gave me a scripture to start this thing out. And it's Psalms 121, and it's verse 1 through 2. And it says, I will lift mine eyes unto the hills from whence comes my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made the heaven and the earth. When the Lord enters the chat, y'all, when the Lord comes into your life, He begins to dismantle every lie, every belief that you have put in your mind that is not that does not stand up against His word. He begins to dismantle the thoughts. And so when you start to feel different, or you start to feel like you're losing things, you are losing things. You're losing the old way of thinking. When you begin to feel a shift in the atmosphere, He's shifting the way that you think. He's removing all of those old thoughts to give you new thoughts, to make you look up instead of looking down. Because when you're always looking down at the ground, expecting to trip, expecting for something to happen, then how can you see what the Lord has directly in front of you? How can you see what the Lord has directly in front of you? So then He led me to Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. Because what He needs us to understand is that there is a time for everything under the heaven. We have to know how to shift with the atmosphere. So the Lord explained that there's a time for everything and every season for every activity under the heavens. There's a time to be born and there's a time to die. There's a time to plant and a time to uproot. There's a time to kill and there's a time to heal. There's a time to tear down and there's a time to build up. There's a time to weep and there's a time to laugh. There's a time to mourn and there's a time to dance. There's a time to scatter and there's a time to gather them. There's a time to embrace and a time to refrain. There's a time to refrain from embracing. There's a time to search and a time to give up. There's a time to keep and a time to throw away. There's a time to tear and a time to mend. There's a time to be silent and a time to speak. There's a time to love and a time to hate. There's a time for war and then there's a time for peace. He needs you to understand that there's a time for everything under the heaven. But when we get stuck in a grief cycle, guess what happens? We may get stuck on the one particular time and not be able to shift up. We might not be able to shift up. So I had a stick shift, right? I had a stick shift. I had a stick shift most of my life before I actually went to an automatic. Because I love the stick shift. I love the shifting process. But my leg began to get tired from pushing the clutch all the time. Having to push it every time I had to shift. So I got out of it. But what I remember about a stick shift is when you do not know how to change gears, when you don't know how to shift to another gear, there's a burnout that takes place. The clutch will burn out. The same happens for us. When you do not know how to shift gears, when you do not know how to shift into and prepare for another season, you begin to get burned out. You begin to get weak. You begin to get exhausted. Why? Because you're stuck in one gear. And the Lord needs you to shift. Because in your shift is your healing. In your shift, that's where the next thing can take place. But if you never shift, how do you expect to go to the next gear? And what I need for you to understand is, even when the Lord is catapulting you to another season, it requires for it to be pulled back. It requires for you to go back and heal from the things that have broke you in order to move forward. Why? Because if you don't go back and heal, you will not be able to steward the blessings that the Lord has for you. So it's important for you to discern the season that you're in. Something may be right in one season, and it may be wrong in another season. So I had to go through this season where the Lord kept telling me to be quiet. If y'all remember, I talked about this. He kept telling me to be quiet. He told me to be quiet. He told me to shut up. He was telling me all of the things. And I could not follow directions for the life of me. I could not be quiet because I always felt like I had to prove a point. I always felt like I had to say what I had to say. And the Lord came and spoke Spanish, silencio, because he was trying to tell me, sometimes you have to be quiet in order to hear what I need for you to hear. If you're trying to talk at the time that I'm trying to get you to listen, then you're going to miss what is taking place in that season. So I struggled with that for a long time, like for months. Probably, I want to say for a year, I struggled with that. He had to keep coming back and reminding me until I realized what he was actually doing. I learned to discern the season that I was in. And mind you, as I was going through these seasons, the Lord was telling me, he was helping me to understand each season. So I would wake up and he'd be like, oh, you in a pruning season. I didn't understand what a pruning season was, but he didn't care that I didn't understand. Because he knew once he took me through that season and I came out, I would come out. I went in not understanding anything, but I came out understanding everything. And it required me to sit in all of the emotions that I felt. And trust and believe, I felt a lot of emotions. I went through a lot of stuff. So our problem is that we see a difficult season coming and we always want to blame the devil. Oh, the enemy this, the devil did this to me today, the devil did that to me today. But my question to you is it really the devil? Is it really the devil? Or maybe it can be a season that the Lord has you in, teaching you, pruning you, preparing you for your next. But the only way you know is to study the seasons. Because when you study the seasons, you understand what happens in those seasons, and then you're able to recognize what is happening to you and trying to recognize what season you're in. So let me break down some of the seasons so that you're able to recognize what's happening, because everything ain't the devil. Everything bad ain't the devil, and everything good ain't God. Straight up. Because the devil will send blessings too to keep you stuck in your sin. He will send you all of the things that you love to keep you stuck. And God will take you through seasons of trials and tribulation to prepare you for the next assignment. But if you're not paying attention, then you will miss it every single time. So, it ain't always the devil. It may be a pruning season where God is cutting back what is hindering you from growing. Because he cuts back. Just like we cut hair to make it grow, just like we cut rose bushes to make our bushes grow, so does the Lord when it comes to us. He cuts the things off of us that are weighing us down and hindering us from growing. It may be a season of sifting. Like Job. Job went through a sifting season. This is where he is shaking off what serves no purpose and keeping what does. When you sift something, you're shaking off the extra and keeping what's in the sifter. Okay? You're dropping it and shaking off what's being sifted. It may be a season of testing, developing your strength, your endurance, your character, your faith, and your maturity. He may be testing you in a season. But how will you know if you're not sitting with the Lord to understand what season you're in? It may be a season of correction and redirection. This is where he uses that to move you and align you with his purpose for your life. It may be a season of tearing down a faulty foundation built on lies instead of God's truth. So he comes in like a wrecking ball. And if you think about a wrecking ball tearing down a house, it hurts. It hurts. Every hit hurts. Because it is knocking something out of you that is not supposed to be there. It may be a season of release, where he's releasing, helping you to let go of things that no longer serve a purpose for you in the season that you are in. It may be a season of preparation where he's preparing you for the next assignment. It may be a season of waiting, which is the time between being planted and the harvest. Because we know that when something gets planted, it don't just come up right away. It takes time. You have to water it. You have to nurture it. You have to take care of it in order to make it grow. And then when it comes up, you can pick your harvest. So it may be a season of sowing. Where the Lord is planting you through prayer, obedience, faith, perseverance, all of the things. It may be a season of reaping. So what I know right now, I'm going to stop right here. What I know right now, that a lot of people are in a season of reaping. You're reaping the harvest that you planted. And let me explain something to you. Y'all don't, let me speak for we. Because I ain't planting good harvest either in some seasons. So I had to reap that to understand. Don't do that no more. To understand, I don't want to hurt nobody else like that because I didn't like how it made me feel. So a lot of people right now are only in pain because the Lord is showing you what you planted in another season. The Lord is showing you the pain that you caused somebody else. The Lord is showing you how you use other people so now you feel used. The Lord is showing you how you took advantage of somebody's kindness and now you are being taken advantage of. The Lord is showing you how you overlooked somebody and now you're being overlooked. The Lord is showing you how, because you didn't listen, now you're understanding what it means to not listen. The Lord is showing you that because you were disobedient, he's allowing you to see what it feels like to be disobedient by allowing your children to be disobedient to you. Every season is teaching something. But when we blame it on the enemy every single time, we miss what we are supposed to learn. You have to ask the question to the Lord when you're in pain, when you're going through something. Lord, help me to understand what this is that I'm sitting in. Lord, is it because I did something to somebody else? Lord, is it because you're trying to teach me something for the next season? You won't know until you ask the questions. It is so important to ask the questions. It is so important to ask the questions. It may be a season of spiritual warfare, which involves fighting. So he's teaching you how to fight. If I had not experienced a season of spiritual warfare, I wouldn't know how to seek the Lord in prayer. I wouldn't know how to find the scriptures to learn how to fight. I wouldn't have even been able to create a boot camp with what the Lord has taught me. He led me through that during my spiritual warfare. He was showing me what scriptures to use, what scriptures not to use, how to fight, what armor to put on, what not to put on in the seasons that I was in. I wouldn't have understood that any other way. So we have to understand which season we're in order to live that thing out. But because we lack understanding and we are ill-informed, we begin to fight the process that the Lord is using to mature us. Because it's the devil. And when it's the devil, we're going to fight the devil every time. But not everything is the devil. Some things are coming to serve a purpose, to mature you, to help you grow, to prepare you for your next assignment, to prepare you for your God-given purpose. So then he led me to John 15:2. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. He's cutting off what bears no fruit, and he's cutting back what is bearing fruit to make it more fruitful. I told y'all, I questioned what I was seeing when the pastor said, we're not supposed to bury our children. And I'm like, Lord, this never bothered me before. So why now? Why does it bother me now? I've heard that saying several times and not one time did I question it. But Lord, why now? It was because he needed me to understand that though that one is not biblical, but though our thought process is we're older, so we should die first, right? And our kids should die after us. That's not technically how it goes. Because in the Bible, it shows that we lose our children sometimes before us. So then he led me to Job 1:6-12. And it said, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Satan answered to the Lord, from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. The Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on this earth like him. He is blameless and upright. He is blameless and upright. A man who fears God and shuns evil. Does Job, and the devil asked, does Job fear God? Satan replied, have you not put a hedge of protection around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flock and his herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse your face. The Lord said to Satan, very well, then everything he has is in your power. But the man himself do not lay a finger. Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Let me explain this. Satan was looking for somebody to take out. The Lord said, have you tried my servant Job? He upright. I trust him. He feared me. He's going to do all of the things that I expect for him to do. So try him. And Satan said, but you got him covered. So ain't no way I can try him because you got him covered. Every way I try to get in, you're not going to allow me in because I got him covered. And he said, okay, I'm going to take my covering away. And when I take my covering away, you have rights to everything that Job owns except for Job himself. That meant he gave Satan rights to Job's house, to Job's herds, to Job's children, to Job's finances, to Job's health. He gave Satan rights to all of those things to test Job, to test his strength, to test his endurance, to test his obedience, to test his faith. Oh, thank you, Lord. We get tested. And you know what happened? Job lost everything. He even almost lost his sanity. He lost everything. And this is where the Lord took me when he allowed that question to fall on me. A parent is not supposed to bury their children. But how could that be possible if Job lost his children? That's biblical. That's what happened. So then the Lord began to help me to understand something. When we expect for things to go the way that we think it should go, that is what gets us caught up in cycles. That is what gets us caught up in situations. Failed expectation causes frustration. And frustration causes pain and anger, bitterness, resentment. Because we have expected for things to go the way that we think that it should go, and not the way that the Lord has designed for it to go. And so now, because of our expectations, we can't grieve properly. We can't grieve properly. And there are stages of grief that we need to encounter to heal. But what happens is when we allow the expectations to set in, it gets us stuck on the stage. So what are the stages of grief? First of all, while we're going through grief, we need to understand to seek the Lord in our pain and in our grief. And also seek help. But see, the Lord will send you to the person that he has called to help you, because the Lord already makes provision for the vision. He's just waiting on us to come to him and ask the question. Lord, how do I heal from this? Lord, send me help. Lord, put my destiny helpers in position. Lord, send me wise counsel. Lord, I can't do this on my own. Lord, I need you. Seek him. So when we're going through stages of grief, we hit the first stage, denial. And understand, these stages don't come in order. So I'm going to just line them up. Because they come all out of order. Why? Because our emotions are all over the place. So we don't know what we're going to hit first. But we have denial. When denial takes place, the mind is trying to protect the response against the overwhelming thing that happened. You usually feel numb, you feel shocked, and you're unable to accept what has taken place in your life. Whether you lost somebody, whether you lost your job, whether you lost your house, whether you lost a friend, whatever you lost. A loss is a loss. You still gonna deal with the grief of losing something. You have to learn how to deal with it. Denial is not always refusing the facts. Sometimes we acknowledge what is happening. We just struggle to go through the process of what is taking place. Next, we have anger. Anger may be directed towards yourself or everyone else. Because when anger sets in, you don't realize your heart has shifted. And anger not only changes your actions, it changes the way you speak, it changes the way you see things, it changes the way you hear things, it changes you completely. So anger may, again, be directed towards you, or it may be directed towards somebody else. Sometimes the mind tries to make sense of what is happening and tries to find somebody to blame. Anger needs to be expressed and not suppressed. Because what happens is when we have pain, we try to suppress that pain. That's why you see a lot of people with alcohol or drug, because they're trying to suppress it. They're trying to stop it from coming up. They're trying to self-soothe. They're trying to do all of the things that keeps them out of sorts to make them not think about what they're going through. So it's not always alcohol or drugs. Some people overeat. Some people overshop. All of the things. It's so many other things that people do. Some people are overly codependent because they don't know how to heal from what they're feeling. Bargaining. Bargaining means I keep going back to that specific day saying, what could I have done different? Lord, if I do this different, will you send them back? Lord, can I get a do-over? You bargaining with the Lord for your pain. It increases the illusion in your mind because you don't want to accept the truth. So it allows you to dwell in a lie. It controls everything that you are thinking. And if you continue to carry it, it will control every part of your life. You will begin to bargain for every single thing happening in your life. You struggle to let go. Depression. Depression is where you sometimes see people suffering for some type of sadness. They're crying. They feel lonely. They feel withdrawn. They feel exhausted. They feel anxiety. They feel all of the emotions. It changes their sleep pattern. It changes the way they eat. It changes the people that they want to be around. It changes their how motivated they are. And they have difficulty imagining a future. So it makes them want to end their life. It requires for you to seek medical help, especially when your depression has gotten bad. But what the Lord also expects from you is for you to surrender your heart to Him. Surrender your heart to Him so that He's able to help you to get through it. Because without surrendering it, you're still trying to hold on to something. You're still trying to carry something that you were not meant to carry. And the Lord wants you to let it go. And then there's acceptance. And in this stage, you have accepted the loss. And your emotions have regulated. You're not saying, I'm going to forget about the person that left me, or I'm going to forget about the things that I lost, or I'm going to forget about the friendship. You understand that it happened, but you're not going to let that emotion run your life. You begin to understand healing on a different level. You begin to understand that there needs to be a balance between your suffering and your healing. Because too much of one thing will cause you to suffer one way or the other. It'll either cause a lot of anger or it's going to cause a lot of crime. It's going to cause you to close off. So we have to understand that we have to heal. We have to get to a place of acceptance. But what happens is, when we begin to believe the colloquialisms that the people are speaking, right, without checking it with the words in the Bible, checking, Lord, is this what you think? Without going to the Lord and seeking understanding on what we're hearing, we believe those things, and that is the thing that keeps us stuck. Because if a person thinks that we're not supposed to lose certain things, then they will spend time stuck there trying to understand, well, if we're not supposed to lose it, why did it happen? And it keeps you stuck. But losing is a part of life. Because the Bible said there's a time to heal. I mean, there's a time to kill, I think, and a time to live. Y'all get what I'm saying? There's a time to live and there's a time to die. There's a time to tear down and there's a time to build up. There's a time to plant and there's a time to pluck up. We can't stay in one time our whole life, because we'll get burned out. We'll get burned out. So understand, our expectations is what keeps us stuck. Some deaths are due to natural causes, but then there are others that are not. But what the Lord does is, he takes the things that are not and he still uses them to serve a purpose in your life. He used those things. The goal is to understand what happens. And we have no control over what happens. We have no control over the people that we're losing. Because when we try to make them our possession, then it's harder for us to let them go. But when we understand that the Lord gave them to us to steward, then we begin to understand it on a different level. We get stuck when our expectations are over someone else's life supersedes the way that the Lord designed for life to be in general. Because you thinking you know better than God, and you don't. If you think about in the Bible, Mary lost Jesus. She lost her son. Naomi's sons died. That's how her and Ruth ended up together. David lost his infant son. Even when it comes to losing things, Job lost everything. He lost his children and his wealth and his health and his finances. And remember, Pharaoh called for all the firstborns to be killed. So we have to understand that it's a part of the story. We have to not expect that it won't happen. Expect that it will happen. And then I kept hearing the Lord say, expect the unexpected. Expect the unexpected. What does that mean? Recognize that life will not always unfold according to your plan. And you don't just suffer a loss by losing people. So to diminish somebody else's loss because you lost somebody versus them losing things, we have to remember, at a young age, people lost their parents because they were never in their life or they walked away from them. You still go through the same stages. You still go through the same stages. And we have to respect the way that a person grieves. But what the Lord is saying is that the harsh grieving is not supposed to last a lifetime. Grieving is eventually supposed to be regulated so that you're able to live a healthy life, but not forget the things that you lost. Not forget the people that you lost. But learn to love them and grieve for them in a healthy way. Then he gave me Proverbs 4:7, which says that wisdom is the principal thing. There is the principal thing there. Get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Why is he saying that? Because when you seek him for understanding on how grief is supposed to affect you, how you're supposed to properly grieve, then he will help you to understand the things that you need help understanding. See, I wouldn't have been able to go through what I went through with my dad. I wouldn't have been able to minister at my dad's funeral had I not seek the Lord for guidance. Because I broke down when I lost my dad. I was a girl dad. I was my daddy poo-poo. But our grieving didn't start when we lost my dad. Our grieving started when we really lost my dad. When he had a stroke. When we lost him in the ability to love him and see him in a regular way, walking just like we did. And my sister had a stroke, and my sister suffered to understand how she was able to heal from it, and my daddy couldn't. So it caused her to be stuck right there until the Lord gave her understanding. Losses are going to come. It's a part of the story. It's a part of the process. But what the Lord needs us to do is to understand the way that he designed for us to suffer. Understand the way that he designed for us to grieve. Because too much grief can make you sick. It's like a person, this is how he helped me to understand it. You have two different types of people. You have a person that's constipated, and you have a person that has diarrhea. Both functions can take a person out. Too much of something can take a person out, and not enough of something can take a person out. He wants us to find the balance between the two. Because a person that is suffering from diarrhea can get sick due to dehydration because you're not able to hold anything in. So you begin to cry and cry and cry, and you're constantly releasing without being replenished. And even when the Lord tries to pour into you, you have so many holes from not being healed that everything he puts in you drains right back out. And for a person that is constipated, you're so angry that everything is closed off. And you don't even realize that you're angry. Because sometimes when we don't understand emotions, we push them off to the side. I coached somebody, and I noticed that every time I said sad, he was acting like that wasn't an emotion. That's a primary emotion. And so I had to ask the question, why every time I say sad, you looking confused like that's not an emotion? But he didn't think it was an emotion. You want to know why? Because in life, we're taught not to show emotions. We're taught that when we cry, shut up before I give you something to cry about. That means don't cry. But there's healing in crying. We're taught that a man ain't supposed to cry. So when a man cries, then that man feels vulnerable, not understanding that that's a part of life. But because the person who originally created that saying may have been embarrassed by people that made him cry or made her cry, they decided to say, oh, no, you ain't supposed to cry. A man ain't supposed to cry. because it makes them look weak. Because somebody made them feel weak. They decided that if I cry, that makes me feel weak. But there's healing in your tears. There's healing in your tears. Some of the things that we were taught are not biblical. And the only way that you will know the truth from the lie is to test it. Take everything to the Lord in prayer. Test what is being said. Study to show thyself approved. Because not everything that you hear is the truth. It's just somebody's belief that they have made true. So the last scripture that the Lord gave me, right? Because I'm going to end on this. Is Revelation 22:13. And it says, I am the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. What the Lord is saying is, it starts with me, and it is always going to end with me. It starts with me, and it is always going to end with me. So if you find yourself stuck on a cycle, understand, I came live because the Lord is saying that He about to crank some people back up. You are about to finish living out where you got stuck. You are about to finish the cycle so that you can begin to heal. Because He said that you've been here too long. You've been suffering too long. And it's time to heal. So I prophetically speak on today that whoever this word is for, that the Lord gives you the strength to be able to endure the cycle that you are about to complete. That the Lord gives you the strength to be able to understand as you go through. That the Lord gives you the strength to be able to endure anything that comes up against you as you finish what the Lord has started. Because He that has begun a great work in you is faithful to perform it. And this is healing time. I pray that this message resonates with the people that needed it on today. Because it's time for you to shift into a new season to receive your blessing. It's time for you to shift and receive what God has for you. You've been down for too long, and now it's time to rise up to the occasion. So this ends my live. I love y'all, and I pray that this word helps you to see the Lord, to seek the Lord for understanding, and not seek people. I will see y'all tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Bye, everybody.